Her name is Rachel Zegler. Zegler? I don't know. Zegler. Okay, there's something wrong with this person. It's just a total nightmare for the studios. So now she's trying to sell like, oh, I love Snow White. I love everything about the whole story. Here she is more recently trying to change the messaging. This is actually Wednesday.
Thank you so much for being here. And to see this is really emotional for me, so I'm going to try to not do that. I love her, and her superpower is her heart. It's nothing supernatural. It's something that all of us have. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy Snow White. Thank you, guys.
I'm sorry. That was acting. That's what that was.
Now you have Rachel Zegler saying, oh, that 1937 movie, that's just, oh, it's tacky, it's weird, we're going to change all.
Once upon a time, Disney could do no wrong. Every animated classic it touched turned to gold. Every remake a guaranteed success. But then came Snow White 2024, a film that didn't just stumble at the box office, it collapsed into a full-blown catastrophe. This wasn't just another Hollywood misstep. It was a PR disaster, an internet firestorm, and a case study in how to alienate an audience in record time. At the center of it all, Rachel Zegler, a rising star who managed to turn a golden opportunity into a nightmare. And then, as if things weren't bad enough, Megyn Kelly entered the scene, adding fuel to an already raging fire. What happened? How did a movie backed by one of the most powerful studios in the world crash and burn so spectacularly? It all started with one big mistake, and from there, it only got worse. Disney had one job: revive a beloved fairy tale, sprinkle in some modern magic, and cash in on nostalgia. It should have been easy, a guaranteed blockbuster. After all, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs wasn't just any Disney classic. It was the first. The film that built the empire. The one that Walt Disney himself risked everything to create. A timeless story that had captivated generations. So when Disney announced a live-action remake, the expectations were sky high. Could they do it again? Could they capture the magic of 1937 while making it relevant for a modern audience? At first, everything seemed to be going according to plan. They brought in Rachel Zegler.
I know this point has been made, but this truly is the worst casting, maybe in the history of the film industry. Has there been a film with worse casting than this? And I don't just mean the Snow White actress. Obviously, she's terrible, but both of them.
But these guys at Disney, they're not that bright, they're not that smart, and we see that because they can't come up with any new IP. Why not write some new movies? You guys sit around, you have billions of dollars. They keep going back and rewriting the classic.
The reason we had Rachel Zegler on the docket is she's an asshole.
This is someone who is as entitled as, I don't need your business. You know what? Maybe Disney does. Maybe you're a tool, you're a pawn in this film. You didn't write it. You didn't direct it. You have nothing to do with the creation of Snow White. Right. You should shut up and do the job.
Now, one thing that is already universally known at this point by the general public is the fact that Disney is in full-on damage control mode.
I came back, the losses were around $4 billion.
But I think the movie bombed because it's bad. Those CGI little people.
Now for Disney, as you probably remember, all of this publicity, the Zegler interviews, the Daily Mail leak, caused a lot of unexpected, for them anyway, pre-production problems. People weren't supposed to see and understand just how unwatchable the new Snow White was going to be. It was supposed to be, kind of a surprise, but now there was no hiding.
This is truly, she has to go. I'm sorry, Disney. She has to go.
Fresh off her success in West Side Story, to play Snow White. She was young, talented, and on the rise. A perfect choice, on paper. Then, it all went wrong. Rachel Zegler didn't just promote the film, she torched it. In interview after interview, instead of celebrating the legacy of Snow White, she mocked it. She called the original film weird.
And to everyone who hates when I win, the winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her.
Oh my God.
And I can only hope.
What does that mean?
That despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
Dismissed the romance as stalkerish, and even suggested that the prince shouldn't be in the story at all. It didn't stop there. She made it clear that this wasn't going to be a love story. Snow White would be a strong, independent leader instead. The internet exploded. For lifelong Disney fans, this wasn't just a modern update, it was an insult. A total rejection of everything that made Snow White a classic in the first place.
I know that you've told me before that your version of Snow White is different, and it's more of a 2022 version of Snow White. What did you mean by that?
I mean, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so.
And the backlash? It was swift, brutal, and relentless. Instead of excitement, there was anger. Instead of nostalgia, there was outrage. People weren't just skeptical, they were furious. And just when it seemed like things couldn't get any worse, Megyn Kelly entered the chat. Rachel Zegler had already set the internet on fire, but one voice took the backlash to a whole new level. Enter Megyn Kelly.
Man.
Hello, Disney. You're going to have to redo your film again because this woman is a pig and you fired Gina Carano for far less than this nonsense.
Disney is having its own problems. They're finally releasing the latest adaptation of Snow White, but they're scaling back the Hollywood premiere of the film. Kinsey, why is that?
Because Rachel Zegler is a PR nightmare.
Neither of them make any sense for their roles. We've already covered how Rachel Zegler is a terrible choice for Snow White. Nothing about her says Snow White, and that's even leaving aside the fact that she openly detests the story, as she's said many times during this disastrous PR campaign. But Gal Gadot, who plays the Queen, the first problem is that she's the evil queen. The evil queen is supposed to be envious of Snow White's beauty, and that is just not believable. It is just not, even in a movie with magical mirrors and dwarves and all that, in a fairy tale, that strains my ability to suspend disbelief. I cannot buy that Gal Gadot is angry that she's not as beautiful as Rachel Zegler. I cannot buy that.
Disney's new live-action remake of Snow White debuted this weekend, and it's an even bigger dud than anticipated.
I think it's fair to say that no one can stand the star of this movie.
One of the reasons why Rachel Zegler sticks around is she's got a beautiful voice and she has some talent. So I think that certainly helps her because she's a PR nightmare. I don't know how anyone would hire her. Given all the behind-the-scenes mayhem, I expected a Frankenstein's monster where scenes would be stitched together. I think a lot of these live-action updates are really hard to watch. They've really done so much stepping on rakes over the last few months with this project where the box office is just not going to recover.
Controversy has swirled around Gal Gadot's new movie, also starring Rachel Zegler as Snow White. A lot of people don't like her. A lot of people don't like her either. She's got a big mouth. She talked trash about the original movie.
The former Fox News host turned unapologetic commentator had built her brand on one thing, calling out Hollywood nonsense. And when she saw what was happening with Snow White, she didn't hold back. On the Megyn Kelly show, she ripped Zegler apart. "This has got to be the most ungrateful actress I've ever seen," she declared, her tone sharp with disbelief.
She's not like the ideal choice for the lead role in Sweet Snow White.
Her audience ate it up. Megyn Kelly wasn't just criticizing Zegler's comments. She was shredding her entire attitude. How do you land the role of a lifetime and then turn around and insult the very film that made it possible? And she wasn't alone. Conservative voices, Hollywood skeptics, and everyday moviegoers rallied behind Kelly's words, turning Rachel Zegler into the ultimate internet villain.
And now she's trying to reinvent herself because there's been so much blowback, and you can only imagine the studio calls about this woman behind the scene. Like, oh my God, we're $242 million in, and our lead actress hates our film, our actors, our storyline.
So just how bad? The movie debuted in the United States at #1 with $43 million. Decent, but not a blockbuster. And far below projections. Internationally, a similar story. Overseas, Snow White took in $44.3 million in its opening weekend, bringing the total to just $87.3 million, with a budget of around $209 million. That means Snow White is destined to be one of the biggest bombs in Disney history. It will not recoup.
Her West Side Story debut was not a hit, and that was a Spielberg movie, so that was kind of a surprise. But if you're a studio, if you're a director, if you're a casting director, you've got to think twice or three times before hiring her. Listen, she's talented, she's attractive, she's got skill, but there are a lot of actresses in Hollywood who bring all that to the table and are not going to absolutely sabotage you.
The backlash was merciless. Disney, watching the PR nightmare unfold, could only sit back and panic. This wasn't just controversy. It was a full-blown war between Hollywood's new progressive direction and an audience that wasn't buying it. Zegler, now realizing she had walked straight into disaster, scrambled to fix the damage. Suddenly, her tone changed. In interviews, she appeared teary-eyed, insisting she actually loved Snow White and meant no disrespect.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird. So we didn't do that this time.
But it was too late. The damage was done. And Megyn Kelly? She wasn't about to let this slide. She doubled down, taking aim not just at Zegler, but at Disney itself. What did they think was going to happen? Kelly scoffed. You take a beloved classic, trash everything that made it special, and then expect people to show up? Audiences aren't stupid. The internet agreed. And as the controversy raged on, one terrifying question loomed over Disney's biggest gamble. Would anyone even show up to watch this movie?
But you're going to hire little people to play the dwarfs? That just seems like a step backwards. And then, of course, Disney instantly buckled and said, okay, we're going to add magical creatures. And then the picture of the magical creatures leaked online, and everyone just had an absolute blast laughing at it. So the magical creatures are here in the movie. The CGI dwarfs are here in the movie. It works to a degree, but it's certainly going to be a financial hit for Disney, that's for sure.
The answer would come soon enough, and it was about to get ugly. For Disney, the stakes couldn't have been higher. After months of outrage, backlash, and PR disasters, Snow White finally hit theaters. The executives at Disney held their breath. Maybe, just maybe, controversy would work in their favor. Maybe audiences would show up out of sheer curiosity. Maybe the firestorm surrounding Rachel Zegler and Megyn Kelly would translate into ticket sales. But then the numbers came in, and they were brutal. The opening weekend was a complete disaster.
That audiences walk away from this film with an understanding of the true meaning of fairness, of what it means to be fair in this world. There is a message that's been carried on for almost 90 years now from the original animated classic. That is, fairness is what is within. Fairness is to do with your heart, the way you treat the people around you. And it has nothing to do with what you look like. And that's the misunderstanding between Snow White and the Evil Queen. I think it's such an important message, and the way that Disney has elevated it and brought it to this new audience is very special.
Domestic box office, $43 million. International box office, $44.3 million. Total first weekend, gross, a pathetic $87 million. Estimated budget, a staggering $290 million. Do the math, and the result was clear. Disney had just suffered one of its biggest box office flops in history. And the worst part? Even Disney's most loyal fans had stayed away. Theaters that were once packed with families and kids dressed as princesses were now half empty. The buzz wasn't about how great the movie was. It was about how badly it was tanking. Online, the schadenfreude was merciless. Comment sections were flooded with memes, mocking Disney's epic failure. Go woke, go broke, critics laughed. Meanwhile, Megyn Kelly was having a field day. This is what happens when you mess with a classic, she declared on her show, her words sharp and final. She was right. Disney had gambled and they had lost, big time. But if they thought the nightmare was over, they were dead wrong. Because there was one more controversy waiting to explode, and it was about to make things even worse. If Disney thought the box office failure was the end of their Snow White nightmare, they were sorely mistaken.
Behind the scenes, you guys know as well as I do that those executives like Spielberg are looking at that saying, Rachel Zegler can F right off.
Because there was one more disaster lurking in the shadows, the dwarfs. Originally, the film was supposed to feature the iconic 7 dwarfs, just like in the 1937 classic. But then, Peter Dinklage, famous for his role in Game of Thrones, stepped in and changed everything. During an interview, Dinklage called the concept of the dwarfs offensive and outdated, blasting Disney for recycling stereotypes. And just like that, Disney panicked. They scrapped the 7 dwarfs entirely. Instead, they replaced them with random magical creatures, a mix of CGI and actors of all shapes, sizes, and ethnicities. And the backlash? It was immediate. This time, the outrage didn't just come from Disney's usual critics. It came from actors with dwarfism themselves, the very people Hollywood claims to be fighting for. To them, this was one of the rare major roles in cinema history that actually made sense for dwarf actors. And Disney took it away. Actor Dylan Postal, known for his WWE persona Hornswoggle, was furious. He called Disney's decision a slap in the face to actors with dwarfism who already struggle to find roles in the industry. Social media exploded. This was their chance to cast real dwarf actors in a major film. One user ranted, "Instead, Disney erased them in the name of progress?" The irony was undeniable. Disney had tried so hard to avoid offending one actor's opinion that they ended up offending an entire community. And just like that, Snow White wasn't just a box office failure. It was now a full-blown Hollywood embarrassment. But there was still one final phase of this disaster left to unfold, and it would be the most painful of them all. By this point, the writing was on the wall. Snow White had bombed harder than anyone expected. The backlash had spiraled out of control. Rachel Zegler's PR disaster, Megyn Kelly's brutal takedown, the film's catastrophic box office numbers, and the dwarf controversy had all combined into one of the biggest Hollywood disasters in recent history.
I remember back in 2023 when this was going on and all the little people making videos saying, well, wait, there's so few roles for us in Hollywood. We're being passed over for this. You could have cast 7 little
Peter
people.
Dinklage.
Exactly. They're like, Peter Dinklage, you're rich. We're not. We're trying to be extras, or, we're in Johnny Knoxville's Jackass if we're lucky. And so for them, they're like, you're not going to cast.
And now the aftermath was setting in. For Disney, this wasn't just a bad movie flop, this was a brand crisis. Executives were scrambling. Their once loyal audience, the families, the nostalgic Disney lovers, the kids who grew up dreaming about princesses, had officially turned on them. The message was loud and clear. Stop ruining the classics. Stop ignoring the fans. Stop alienating the very people who made Disney what it is. And for Rachel Zegler, she had gone from Hollywood's rising star to one of the most controversial actresses of the year. The industry had seen PR disasters before, but hers was unprecedented. Would she recover? Maybe. Hollywood has a short memory. But for now, she was the face of failure. And Megyn Kelly? She walked away from this mess looking like the ultimate "I told you so" queen. She had called it from the start, and now, as Snow White crumbled, her words carried even more weight. But the biggest takeaway? Disney had no one to blame but themselves. They had disrespected their own legacy. They had ignored their fans. And in their desperate attempt to modernize a beloved classic, they had alienated everyone. And so, the moral of the story was painfully clear. If you're going to remake a classic, don't insult the original. If you're a studio, don't underestimate your audience. And if you're Disney, maybe, just maybe, stop sabotaging your own success. Because as Snow White just proved, when you anger your fan base, even a fairy tale can turn into a nightmare.